What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the A&J Soccer Show. My name is Andrew Pipers, and to my left we have
Jalen Thompson.
And we have an awesome episode for you guys. First of all, sorry about last week. Had Thanksgiving break, spent some time back home, but we are back and happy to have another episode for you guys.
That's right.
Going to talk about Premier League, the Premier League last weekend, and what we've got to expect in the coming weeks, or this week. Then we're going to talk a little bit of Serie A, a little bit of La Liga, but the big discussion today is going to be VAR, which we're going to get into later in the episode. Anyway, so big Premier League weekend we had last weekend. Any games stick out at you in particular?
Of course, we got to start with the City game, am I right?
Heck yeah.
Very interesting. Huddersfield gave us a run for our money, but as Pep said going into the game, he was worried about the game just because Huddersfield's a team that likes to sit back. They like to absorb the pressure and then get you on counterattacks or fluke goals, which is basically what they did.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was a tough game to watch a little bit of the time because, Huddersfield, something about going there. Man United went there earlier in the season and lost, and I was sort of thinking about that in the back of my mind. And yeah, definitely a tough place to go. A fun game to watch though. Once we got back on level terms right after halftime with, I think it was Sterling who won the penalty. Very good response from the boys early second half, and love to see that. And I think Aguero kind of coolly slotted it home. But that second Sterling goal, you could say it was lucky, but I think we were putting a lot of pressure on, and we deserved the win.
Yeah, I mean after the first half. As I was watching it, I was getting kind of nervous just because we had a ton of pressure on their goal, but we weren't putting away the chances that we had. We had at least 5 clear chances to take the lead in the first half. And what do you know? And the first half comes, and they get a deflection off a corner, Otamendi own goal, and all of a sudden we're in a scary place. So it was good for us to respond right away after the half with Sterling drawing the penalty around the 46th minute. Aguero slotted it in, and then we get a bit of luck on our side with the deflection with Sterling scoring. So I think Huddersfield played very well.
I agree.
They defended like they knew they had a game plan going into the game, obviously. And I had a lot of respect for the way that they were able to keep the game very entertaining. But I think it was a big part on us for why the game was so close. I think we had a lot of chances to make it a typical 5-0 thrasher.
Typical. I love it. You're right. I mean, David Wagner, he's an American-German manager, and he's done a really good job at Huddersfield. I remember beginning of the season, before it started, there was a journalist from the Huddersfield paper who I was reading, and he said, Huddersfield are going to shock a lot of people, and they really have. Like I alluded to earlier, they beat Man U, which is not easy to do, and I wish them the best of luck the rest of the season, but I was definitely happy to get the positive result. And just looking ahead to Tuesday, I just want to see who we play. So, Southampton, who Southampton had a pretty big win over Everton this past weekend. I don't know if you have anything to say about Everton. They kind of spent big in the summer, and Koeman's gone. I mean, they're in a tough spot. If you have any thoughts on them, I'm not really sure.
I mean, They took a pretty devastating loss to Southampton this weekend. I think it was like 4-1.
4-1.
It was pretty brutal, but Sigurdsson scored a really, really nice goal. Ball hit all sorts of woodwork there. It was kind of crazy, but I'm not too worried about the Southampton game. With the form that we're in, honestly, with having Company back, I think him and Otamendi still need to work out some chemistry issues back there, but Sterling he's killing it right now, man. I'm not gonna lie, he's killing it. He's our top scorer. He's got 12 goals, and I mean, it looks like he's becoming more consistent, which is all due to Pep, for sure.
Right. Yeah. I saw a video, and it was a video of Pep, sort of training him on the training ground, and then it does a side by side, and Sterling does exactly what Pep tells him to do and told him to do, and he does it in the game and gets a nice goal. So. You're right. Pep is having an amazing influence on the team. Another quick note about City. I saw Mangala play, I think, a couple of games ago, and he didn't look terrible. I wasn't scared.
I was so surprised.
He's typically really scary to watch play, but he held his own. So maybe Pep is helping him out there a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's crazy the impact a manager can have when you come in and you put sort of tactics, but to have that individual approach with your players and to be able to to be able to improve their playing style and their performances that quickly, it says a lot about your abilities as a manager.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, that was the City game, but probably the biggest game of last weekend was Chelsea-Liverpool, and it ended up being 1-1. Liverpool sort of, controlled a lot of the game, I thought, but Chelsea had their chances. Hazard played amazing, but Mo Salah with the first goal for Liverpool, that guy's on fire. Just a good game.
Yeah, Salah just looked super dangerous. Him and Hazard, they were really just my man of the match. He ended up scoring to take the lead. Salah ended up scoring to take the lead, and then Willian responds with a debatable goal. Some say it's a cross, some say it's a shot, but ends up chipping Mignolet. Not much Mignolet could do about it. I don't think he was really expecting it. So the game ended up 1-1, but yeah, I think it was a pretty interesting game to watch, and it's pretty cool to see Hazard starting to fire up, as he had a pretty quiet start to the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that was a big game. I think in terms of City, that's a good result for us. Chelsea aren't really coming. They dropped some points, like you could say, so they're not catching us as much. Liverpool, they might be trying to focus on Champions League perhaps, because I know Sadio Mane didn't start, and I think Firmino didn't start either. So perhaps Klopp has an eye towards the Champions League, and not like giving up on the Premier League, but I think he knows he can't win, and he's just trying to make sure he does well in the Champions League. So I think that's his mindset for this game.
Yeah, another big game, Tottenham West Brom.
Points dropped for Spurs.
Yeah, they're down in 5th place now, but they tie West Brom. Rondon got the goal for West Brom. Harry Kane with the one for Tottenham, and that's just huge. Giving up points like that as City's on a roll, it's just kind of every point counts to try to keep up with the league leaders right now.
Yeah, I think Kyle Walker will be thinking that he's happy he made the move. And West Brom, they fired Tony Pulis, their manager of probably 2 years, who's known as a more defensive manager that keeps you in the league rather than has you do well in the league. So they fired him, and then they go out and draw with Spurs, which is a result that no one predicted. I don't think anyone predicted that. And Spurs in 5th place is not good. They finished 2nd place, I think, the last 2 seasons, and kind of fallen down. I don't know. Are they behind Arsenal right now?
Yeah. Arsenal's in 4th with about 25 points, and Tottenham's a point behind them. So
there's always that little rivalry that matters a lot to them. But
speaking about keeping up with City, Man U barely squeaks by. I think they played Burnley this week.
Brighton.
Brighton. Oh yeah, Brighton. Yeah. There you go. They played Brighton, and Ashley Young had a very interesting shot, deflected off a guy, goes in. But there was a little something going on in the background, wasn't there?
Dude, there was something going on. Try a freaking karate kick by Romelu Lukaku on the poor Brighton defender. It went unseen by the referee. Goal counts. Man U gets the points, and that kicking incident is pretty indicative of the broader issue that we're going to talk about today, which is VAR. VAR is video assistant referee. For those of you who don't know, and I don't know if do you want to try to give an explanation of it in case people don't know what it is?
Yeah, I mean, basically, so if there's an incident on the field that the referee, I feel like doesn't get a clear look at it,
right.
He could whistle and stop the play, go over, look at the screen with the replay on it, and make a further decision from there. So that could work with anything from, like you were talking about, Lukaku kicking people, so physical violence issues, to goal line technology. Stuff like that is a lot of use for. But I mean, a big debate is when you start introducing replays and stoppages into there, it's naturally going to create breakages in the game, where the game's not going to be as fluid. Technology is more involved, and soccer's always been known for a pure fluid sport that you can just watch pretty constantly without any type of commercial influences and whatnot. So I think it's a huge debate. I mean, what do you think about it?
Yeah, so for a long time I was definitely on the side of I don't think we should have it for the reasons you're talking about. Soccer is such a fluid game, and these things happen. It's just a part of the game. If you look at American football, for example, you can be sitting in your living room watching a play, and it's already a slow game, and then they can review a play for like 10 minutes. And that's what I didn't want to happen in soccer.
Right.
But in the instances I've seen it used, it's been very quick. It's been maybe 2 minutes, and they get the right call, which I think is important,
Right.
like the most important thing in my mind. It's in place in the Bundesliga. It's in place in Serie A, which we'll get to in a second. But I think I've switched my perspective from I want to keep it out of the game because it's going to stop and slow down the game, to now, if you can keep the time where the referees are looking at the screen to a minimum, say maximum 2 minutes, then and get the right call, I think it's worth implementing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you go over to the Serie A, and the incident happened in the AS Roma versus Genoa game,
Yeah.
where De Rossi, I think it was like a corner or something, ends up slapping his marker in the face.
Yep.
Referee stops the game, looks at the VAR, sees the attack, and actually sends Rossi off.
Oh, wow.
And gets him getting a red card also meant that there was a penalty kick, which ended up having them concede. They ended up tying the game 1-1, but it was just kind of like two opposite ways where Romelu Lukaku could have been sent off if they would have caught that, and the goal definitely would have been disallowed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like two really big things. But I mean, from the perspective of, like when there's those tight offside calls that are really like, I mean, sometimes the attacker could go and score, sometimes they don't. But
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to trust the referee to, like, his human eye? Like, I mean, everyone makes mistakes, but the ones that are like an arm barely sticking out, do you want to be able to call that back and get the right call? Or
No, I think with those close instances, it becomes too calculated and mechanic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Trying to pick out every precise little detail. Whereas part of the beauty of the game is, like we were talking about, that free flowing. But when the ref makes a small mistake like that, where you can understand that it's a mistake that he or she would make because it's just like a centimeter offside, and we can see it when we look at a camera angle, like 47 different camera angles, and he has to make it in a split second. I think that part of the game needs to stay, and that's what I'm talking about. If the ref goes to VAR and starts losing confidence in himself, and just keeps going to VAR for little things like that, that's when a 45-minute half of soccer can turn into 55, 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's
and
a lot at a time.
Yeah, and that's just like boring. So I think those little instances you're talking about need to stay out. But an example of an instance where, absolutely we need VAR, or at least goal line technology, is Messi scoring. He scored a goal, but it wasn't given because the referee had no goal line technology or VAR. It was this last weekend against Valencia, actually. And ball was clearly over the line. Messi's not given the goal. Valencia goes on a counter, almost scores on the counter while Barcelona players are celebrating. But, that's just an example. So, in my opinion, instances like that are when we need VAR, not when it's I'm offside by like a hand or like a foot or something.
Right. But the question is, like, where do you kind of set those boundaries? Because I agree, the Messi one, that one was pretty bad because, I mean, just watching it from us in our camera angle at home, you can clearly see the ball bounce in the goal. So it's not like it just kind of like rolls over. It bounces before the goalkeeper throws it back out. Seemed like a pretty obvious call to me, but, referees have their angles and blah, 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 blah. But they end up tying the game 1-1.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know where that took place in the game, but I mean, anything can change the game.
Anything. Yeah.
It just, for me, it comes to the point where, like, where do you draw the line? Like, where can you tell a referee, like, oh, you can use VAR here, but you can't use it here? What makes him, what keeps him from using it on those small offside calls? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Maybe, I think perhaps just like theorize about it. If you could have like a set number that you could use in a game only for specific instances. So if there was just some words in writing saying, this can only be used for, I guess it becomes difficult because I want to say this can only be used for like blatant offsides calls, but then what becomes a blatant offsides call? Exactly, yeah. So I see your point. I think maybe perhaps limiting the number of times it can be used in a game. Perhaps going to like a coach's challenge system, which is something that happens in American sports pretty often. I think they implemented it in baseball recently.
Okay.
And maybe the challenge system would work. So the onus or the impetus is not on the referee, so he doesn't lose confidence in himself, thinking he always has to go back and check VAR to make sure he gets every centimeter right.
Yeah, the coaching challenging is interesting. I think that's a better option than the limited number of attempts because then you get into a problem where, say, he wastes his opportunities
sure.
on very minuscule things that ended up being the right call, and then, say, 89th minute, ball goes over the line, and you can't double check it because you already wasted all your chances. So that'd be very I think that'd be a hard way to implement it, but the coaches challenging system, I think, would be a more realistic choice, just because I don't know, depending on the number that you give them, it could obviously create stoppages in the game, but at the same time, it wouldn't be all on the referee to decide when he should stop the game and things like that.
Yeah, and I just going with this coach's challenge. I think if it's something like a goal where they're already celebrating, the coach could go to the referee and say, hey, like, I'm going to challenge that because that looks blatantly offsides to me, or offside. And, I think things like that. If it's a little, like, just to avoid all these stoppages that we don't want, if it's a little something, maybe they shouldn't be able to use it then, or, maybe they could talk to the fourth official about it instead of the main ref and try to keep the game going. Because, they've got 4 officials out there. So, and the fourth official seems to be the guy who just kind of talks to the managers all game anyway, and does the time at the end of the half. So maybe if he gets the job of listening to these coaches' challenges, he could go over to VAR while the game is going on for small instances, like ones that you wouldn't want to stop the game for, and he could look at it and tell the ref, like, hey, give this guy perhaps a yellow card because that was definitely a bad challenge. It's definitely not like a perfect solution, but I think if people start talking about it now, like, that's just like bringing up ideas like this.
Yeah, be more progressive. Yeah, I know. Another big question would have to be, like, you're talking about, like, how long after the incident happens are you able to challenge it if you were to have that kind of system? And I think with VAR right now, if the ball goes out, I think it eliminates the referee's ability to pull it back, or it's some type of rule on that. I can't say that I'm 100% sure on that, but it's something like that. Anyway, they tried it out in the Confederations Cup last year, and I don't think people responded to it too well. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think a lot of the analysts post games were talking when it was used. They didn't really like it. Obviously, I think it was used successfully a couple times, but I think a lot of the times the referees made the right calls, and they just didn't know how they felt with some new technology. And as always is going to happen, a new technology being placed in a place where it hasn't been used before is going to get some backlash. But it depends on, as the game continues to progress, how long can we hold off the new technology coming into the game?
Yeah, I agree, and I'm sure I remember hearing from people when all these, games when they were originally broadcast, you would have, very few camera angles. And they didn't even like the fact that the fans could see so many other camera angles because, they didn't want fans going up in uproar about this. So I think anytime technology is introduced into the game, or really anything for that matter, there's going to be a backlash from the traditionalists who have played the game the same way their entire lives. I guess it's easier for people our age to look at VAR and say, yeah, like, it makes sense.
Right.
But, the 75-year-old person who's
the old heads.
Yeah, the old, I think they're gonna be like, keep this stuff away from my game. And I respect what they're saying. It's the game they grew up with, but there's just so many instances. This Messi example is just one of many instances. This De Rossi example, Lukaku, that all happened in one weekend.
Yeah.
And one of those 3 instances was properly dealt with. And maybe if VAR is in there, we can deal with everything properly while maintaining a sense of fluidity of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
Kind of staying on that path of the Serie A. The table is very, very close right now, with Napoli in first with 38, Inter Milan following with 36, Juventus with 34, and Roma with 31. As the table's so tight, what do you think that kind of says about the league as a whole?
I think Italian soccer might be making a comeback to the days of You know, when you had the big at that time, it was AC Milan was big, Inter Milan was big. You know, Italian teams were feared, and I think the Italian league is making a comeback in competitiveness, which is good for Italian soccer. You know, obviously Italy didn't make the World Cup. We spoke about that already, but in terms of their domestic league and competitiveness, I think that's really exciting to watch. If you're a new fan to soccer, you know, the Premier League is where you're going to get the most entertainment. It's the most entertaining league in the world. But Serie A is going to be one that you're going to want to follow because of the points that you just mentioned.
Right.
Juventus has won the last 6 Scudettos, which is the domestic league, and Napoli is at the top with 38 right now. So close. Do you agree with that, or do you have any other thoughts on it?
I mean, just the thing that kind of stands out to me is that the fact that AC Milan is in 7th place right now. And like we were talking about earlier, I mean, I don't personally watch the Serie A very much, but back in the glory days when, you know, Eto'o was at Inter Milan
Right.
and Ronaldinho was at AC Milan.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some really quality players, Alexander Pato, Robinho. I mean, it was a really exciting teams to
Yeah.
watch, and they did pretty well in the Champions League. So I just think it's interesting to see the state of the table. Sampdoria, probably didn't pronounce that right, but they're sneaking in at 6th place. So it's just kind of like a different time for the Serie A, kind of a progression. Whereas, like, I don't know, in the Premier League over the past couple of years, not much has changed other than Leicester winning the title a couple of years ago. You know, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, and Man U, I mean, all just kind of sitting at the top. So it's just very interesting to compare those two leagues, seeing that they're both very popular ones in Europe.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I love on our show. You know, we'll pronounce everything like wrong. I love that. That's trademark. Yeah, I mean, it's a great league. I think you're gonna want to watch it if you're a soccer fan for sure. Maybe, you know, I pull for Juventus a little bit. I hope they can pull it out, but honestly, if Napoli wins, I think it's good for Italian soccer. It's good for European soccer. It makes everything a lot more interesting. And the last thing we just want to touch on is
Got some big news.
yeah. So big news, guys. We are actually on iTunes now. So episodes 1 through 5,
Yes, sir.
they're up on iTunes. We're really stoked about it. You know, we got help from a Davidson student to get them on there. So we're both really proud of it. Please go check us out on iTunes, as well as continuing your support on the YouTube channel. You know, we really appreciate it. And yeah, so
Yeah, we appreciate you guys dealing with us. You know, we had the little Thanksgiving break. We weren't able to upload last week, but we hope that you will tune in next week, as we will have an episode. But until then, we hope that you guys will like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.
Phantom, that's alright. Inside all white, like something you ride a sled down. I just want that head. My brilliant